You are listening to Bedtime Dreamy Tales. Subscribe to our channel for new story. Story title, The Dragon of the North. Very long ago, as old people have told me, there lived a terrible monster who came out of the north and laid waste to entire tracts of country, devouring both men and beasts. This monster was so destructive that it was feared that unless help came, no living creature would be left on the face of the earth. It had a body like an ox, legs like a frog with 2 short forelegs and 2 long ones behind, and a tail like a serpent, 10 fathoms in length. When it moved, it jumped like a frog, covering half a mile of ground with each spring. Fortunately, it stayed in the same place for several years before moving on to the next location, completely devouring everything in the vicinity before it moved. Nothing could hunt it because its whole body was covered with scales harder than stone or metal. Its 2 great eyes shone by night and even by day like the brightest lamps. Anyone who had the ill luck to look into those eyes became bewitched, rushing of his own accord into the monster's jaws. In this way, the dragon was able to feed on both men and beasts without any trouble. All the neighboring kings offered rich rewards to anyone who could destroy the monster, either by force or enchantment, but all had miserably failed. Once, a great forest in which the dragon lay was set on fire. The forest was burnt down, but the fire did not harm the monster at all. However, there was a tradition among the wise men of the country that the dragon might be overcome by one who possessed King Solomon's signet ring, upon which a secret writing was engraved. This inscription would enable anyone wise enough to interpret it to find out how the dragon could be destroyed. Only, no one knew where the ring was hidden, nor was there any sorcerer or learned man who could explain the inscription. At last, a young man with a good heart and plenty of courage set out to search for the ring. He traveled towards the sunrise, knowing that all the wisdom of old times came from the east. After several years, he met a famous Eastern magician and asked for his advice in the matter. The magician answered, "Mortal men have but little wisdom and can give you no help, but the birds of the air would be better guides to you if you could learn their language. I can help you understand it if you will stay with me a few days." The youth thankfully accepted the magician's offer, saying, "I cannot now offer you any reward for your kindness, but should my undertaking succeed, your trouble shall be richly repaid." Then the magician brewed a powerful potion out of 9 sorts of herbs gathered by moonlight and gave the youth 9 spoonfuls daily for 3 days. This made him able to understand the language of birds. At parting, the magician said, "If you ever find Solomon's ring and get possession of it, come back to me so I may explain the inscription on the ring to you, for there is no one else in the world who can do this." From that time, the youth never felt lonely as he walked along. He always had company because he understood the language of birds, learning many things that mere human knowledge could never have taught him. But time went on, and he heard nothing about the ring. One evening, hot and tired from walking, he sat down under a tree in a forest to eat his supper. He saw 2 gaily plumaged birds sitting at the top of the tree, talking to one another about him. The first bird said, "I know that wandering fool under the tree there. He is trying to find King Solomon's lost ring." The other bird answered, "He will have to seek help from the Witch-Maiden, who will doubtless be able to put him on the right track. If she has not got the ring herself, she knows well enough who has it." "But where is he to find the Witch-Maiden?" asked the first bird. "She has no settled dwelling and might as well be the wind." The other replied, "I do not know where she is at present, but in 3 nights from now she will come to the spring to wash her face, as she does every month when the moon is full." The youth resolved to follow the birds to the spring. 2 things made him uneasy. He might fall asleep when the birds went, and he might lose sight of them, since he had no wings. He was too tired to keep awake all night, yet his anxiety prevented him from sleeping soundly. With the earliest dawn, he saw his feathered companions still asleep. He ate his breakfast and waited until the birds should start. They did not leave the place all day, hopping from one tree to another looking for food until evening. The same happened the next day, but on the 3rd morning, one bird said to the other, "Today we must go to the spring to see the Witch-Maiden wash her face." They remained on the tree until noon, then flew south. The young man's heart beat with anxiety, lest he lose sight of his guides. He managed to keep the birds in view until they perched on a high tree at the edge of a small open space in the forest, with a clear spring in the middle. He sat down at the foot of the tree and listened attentively to what they were saying. "The sun is not down yet," said the first bird. "We must wait until the moon rises and the maiden comes to the spring. Do you think she will see that young man sitting under the tree?" "Nothing escapes her eyes," said the other bird. "Will he have the sense not to let himself be caught in her toils?" "We will wait and see how they get on together," said the first bird. The evening light had faded, and the full moon was shining down upon the forest. The young man heard a slight rustling sound. A maiden, gliding over the grass lightly, stood beside the spring. The youth could not turn away his eyes, for she was the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. Without seeming to notice anything, she went to the spring, looked up to the full moon, knelt, bathed her face 9 times, looked up to the moon again, and walked 9 times around the well, singing, "Full-faced moon with light unshaded, let my beauty near be faded. Never let my cheek grow pale, while the moon is waning nightly. May the maiden bloom more brightly. May her freshness never fail." Then she dried her face with her long hair and was about to go away when her eye fell upon the young man. She turned towards the tree, and he rose, waiting. The maiden said, "You ought to have a heavy punishment for watching my secret doings, but I will forgive you this time, because you are a stranger and knew no better. Tell me who you are and how you came to this place." The youth answered humbly, "Forgive me, beautiful maiden, if I have offended you. I chanced to come here after long wandering and found a good place to sleep under this tree. At your coming, I did not know what to do and stayed where I was." The maiden answered kindly, "Come and spend this night with us. You will sleep better on a pillow than on damp moss." The youth hesitated, but he heard the birds saying, "Go where she calls you, but give no blood, or you will sell your soul." So he went with her to a beautiful garden with a splendid house, glittering in the moonlight as if built of gold and silver. When the youth entered the house, he found many splendid chambers, each one finer than the last. Hundreds of tapers burned upon golden candlesticks, shedding light like the brightest day. They reached a chamber where a table was spread with the most costly dishes. At the table were placed 2 chairs, one of silver and one of gold. The maiden seated herself on the golden chair and offered the silver one to her companion. They were served by maidens dressed in white, whose feet made no sound as they moved. Not a word was spoken during the meal. Afterwards, the youth and the Witch-Maiden conversed pleasantly until a woman dressed in red reminded them it was bedtime. The youth was shown to another room with a silken bed and down cushions, where he slept delightfully, yet he seemed to hear a voice near his bed repeating, "Remember to give no blood." The next morning, the maiden asked if he would like to stay with her always. As he did not answer immediately, she continued, "You see how I always remain young and beautiful. I am under no one's orders and can do as I like. I have never thought of marrying before, but I took a fancy to you. If you agree, we might be married and live together like princes, for I have great riches." The youth was tempted by the beautiful maiden's offer, but he remembered the bird's warning. He answered cautiously, "Do not be angry, dear maiden, if I do not decide immediately. Give me a few days to consider." "Why not?" answered the maiden. "Take some weeks if you like." To make the time pass pleasantly, she took him over every part of her beautiful dwelling and showed him all her splendid treasures. These treasures were produced by enchantment, for the maiden could make anything she wished appear by the help of King Solomon's signet ring. However, the youth did not know this. He thought they were all real. One day, the maiden took him to a secret chamber with a little gold box on a silver table. Pointing to the box, she said, "Here is my greatest treasure, a precious gold ring. When you marry me, I will give you this ring, and it will make you the happiest of men. But you must give me 3 drops of blood from the little finger of your left hand." The youth shuddered, remembering his soul was at stake. He concealed his feelings and asked, as if carelessly, what was remarkable about the ring. She answered, "No mortal fully understands the power of this ring. Even with my half knowledge, I can work wonders. If I put it on my left little finger, I can fly like a bird. On my left third finger, I am invisible and can see everything. On my left middle finger, neither fire nor water, nor any sharp weapon can hurt me. On my left forefinger, I can produce whatever I wish. On my left thumb, my hand is so strong it can break down rocks and walls. The ring contains other secret signs no one can understand. It belonged to King Solomon, the wisest of kings. The youth determined to get possession of the ring, though he doubted its wonders. He wished the maiden would let him hold it, but did not like to ask. A few days later, they spoke of the magic ring again, and the youth said, "I do not believe the ring has all the power you say." The maiden opened the box and took out the ring, which glittered like a sunbeam. She put it on her left middle finger and told the youth to try cutting her with a knife. He was unwilling, but she insisted. He tried to strike her, but an invisible wall of iron seemed to be between them. The maiden laughed, unhurt. Then she put the ring on her left third finger and vanished. She reappeared, laughing and holding the ring. "Let me try," said the youth, "if I can do these things." The maiden, suspecting no treachery, gave him the ring. He pretended to forget what to do and asked which finger to put it on to avoid sharp weapons. "The middle finger of your left hand," she answered, laughing. She took the knife and tried to strike the youth, but it was impossible. Then he asked her to show how to split stones with the ring. She led him to a courtyard with a great boulder. "Put the ring on your left thumb," she said. The youth did so and found that with a single blow, the stone shattered into pieces. He realized this was a chance not to be missed. While they laughed at the shattered stone, he placed the ring on his left third finger. "Now," said the maiden, "you are invisible until you take the ring off." But the youth had no intention of doing that. He put the ring on his left little finger and soared into the air like a bird. The maiden thought he was playing and cried, "Come back, friend, for now you see I told you the truth." But he never came back. The maiden saw she was deceived and bitterly repented, trusting him. The youth flew to the magician, who taught him the speech of birds. The magician was delighted and worked for 7 weeks to interpret the ring's secret signs. He gave the youth instructions to overcome the dragon of the north. Cast an iron horse with wheels under each foot, and arm yourself with a spear 2 fathoms long, wielded by the ring on your left thumb. The spear must have 2 strong chains 10 fathoms in length. Thrust the spear through the dragon's jaws, spring from the horse, and fasten the chains to the ground with iron stakes. After 2 or 3 days, the dragon's strength will be exhausted, and you can give him the finishing stroke with the ring on your left thumb. Keep the ring on your left third finger until you are close, so the monster cannot see you. The youth thanked the magician and flew home. He heard that the dragon was near and went to the king, who promised his daughter's hand and a large part of his kingdom to the slayer of the dragon. The youth requested the iron horse, spear, and chains, which were prepared as he asked. The iron horse was so heavy that 100 men could not move it. The youth moved it with the magic ring. The dragon was so near that in a couple of springs he would cross the frontier. The youth began to consider how to act, as he could not push the iron horse from behind and ride it as the sorcerer had said. A raven advised him, "Ride upon the horse and push the spear against the ground, as if pushing off a boat." The youth did so and easily moved forward. The dragon's jaws were wide open, ready for his prey. The youth trembled with horror, but did not lose courage. Holding the iron spear upright, he brought it down with all his might through the monster's lower jaw. Quick as lightning, he sprang from his horse before the dragon could close his mouth. A thunderous clap warned him that the dragon's jaws had closed upon the spear. The youth saw the spear's point sticking up above the dragon's upper jaw, knowing the other end was fastened to the ground. The dragon had his teeth fixed in the iron horse, rendering it useless. The youth hastened to fasten the chains to the ground with iron pegs. The dragon's death struggle lasted 3 days and nights, causing the earth to tremble for miles. When the monster's strength waned, the youth used the ring to lift a stone that 20 men could not move, beating the dragon's head until it lay lifeless. Rejoicing spread when the dragon's death was announced. The conqueror was received with pomp, and the king's daughter willingly married him. A magnificent wedding was celebrated, with rejoicings lasting 4 weeks, for all the neighboring kings met to thank the man who had freed them from their common enemy. Amid the joy, they forgot to bury the dragon's body. Its stench poisoned the air, causing a pestilence that killed many hundreds. In distress, the king's son-in-law sought help from the Eastern magician, flying like a bird with the ring. However, ill-gotten gains never prosper, and the stolen ring brought him ill luck. The Witch-Maiden had not rested until she found out where the ring was. She changed into an eagle, watching the air for the bird with the ring hung around its neck by a ribbon. Pouncing on the bird, she tore the ring from its neck, then flew down, and the two stood face to face in human form. "Now, villain, you are in my power," cried the Witch-Maiden. "You scorned my love, stole my ring, and expect to live happily as the king's son-in-law? Now the tables are turned." "Forgive me," cried the prince. "I know I have wronged you and repent. Your prayers come too late," she said. "You wronged me twice. You must bear the punishment." She put the ring on her left thumb, lifted the young man, and walked away to a deep cave in a rock. She chained him and said, "Here you shall remain until you die. I will bring you food daily to prevent hunger, but never hope for freedom." The old king and his daughter waited anxiously for weeks. The king's daughter often dreamed of her husband's suffering and begged her father to summon enchanters and magicians to find him. They could only tell he was alive and suffering, but not where he was. A celebrated Finnish magician found he was imprisoned by a powerful being. The king sent messengers to the east, finding the magician who had interpreted Solomon's ring. The magician pointed out the prince's location, saying he could only be freed with his help. Guided by birds, they reached the cave where the prince had been chained for nearly 7 years. The magician undid the chains and cared for the prince until he recovered. They returned home to find the old king had died that morning, raising the prince to the throne. After long suffering came prosperity, lasting to the end of his life. But he never recovered the magic ring, which was never seen again by mortal eyes. And now, if you had been the prince, would you not rather have stayed with the pretty Witch-Maiden? If you like this story, please give this video a like. For more stories, go to bedtimedreamytales.com. See you in the next story.